I'm Erica Hollingsworth, and you're listening to the F1 podcast.
What's up, everyone? It is Richie here from the F1 podcast. Happy Friday. We're coming towards the end of the F1 summer break. A lot has been relatively quiet, but
hmm
why not come on and talk about where the teams sit at this midpoint of the season? I'm here with my amazing co-host, Andrew Cleary. How are you doing, my man? And happy Friday to you too.
Happy Friday to you too. I am doing well. It's summertime, but I saw some of my American cousins are going back to school, which means, it's got back to school time, which means summer is going to be over in about a couple weeks, that's why we're here. We're here to have some fun talking about, the mid-season review of these illustrious teams that we have in F1. We're going to give them some report card grades and see who has been good and who's been naughty, naughty, naughty.
I love that. So just before we get into this episode, just a couple of updates. One, we're going to be at Trinity Common for the Dutch Grand Prix. We got our table secured. I think we're looking at about 10 to 15 people. So if you want to come join us at Trinity Common, best way to do that is send us a message on our Instagram page at f1.podcast. That will guarantee you a seat to sit with us. However, you can call the restaurant and make your own reservation. So please stay tuned and you'll see kind of the updates on that. So where do we start? Red Bull Racing Honda has 408 points. McLaren has 366. Ferrari 345. Mercedes in fourth place at 266. Aston Martin 73 points. RB Honda 34 points. Haas 27 points. Alpine 11 points. Williams 4. And in 10th place, Kick Sauber Ferrari 0. So we're going to start from the top and go all the way to the bottom. Red Bull Racing. How would you describe the season they are? Yes, they are in first place in both the Constructors and in the Drivers' Championship. Yes, they do have 7 wins and 13 podiums, but it's not been the season that they're hoping for, to say myself. Yes, they are leading. They do have a comfortable lead, but I don't think they were expecting this much of a triumph from all the other teams below.
Evident in their best results of the year. That came in Bahrain and Saudi GP, the first two Grand Prix where they both finished a 1-2 finish. And they haven't done that since Ricci. All 7 wins have been by Max. Let's say the majority, I think all but like 2 of the podiums have been on Max as well. And their worst result was in Monaco, which was a P6 finish by Max and a retirement by Checo. This has been a matter of more so Checo bringing the team down a little bit because of all the damages that he's put onto the car this year with just crashing out in practice, qualifying. That is eating into their development budget, which then they're not now able to, keep up on an accelerated development pace that the likes of Ferrari have, that the likes of McLaren have, that the likes of Mercedes have. And it's really starting to even out the playing field to the point where you can sense a ton of frustration from Max Verstappen on how they built the car initially, right? With the RB20. We've learned its weaknesses, right? At the beginning of the season, my God, it was a rocket ship. But now we've learned a weakness that it doesn't work well on the curbs. And that is becoming a big problem for Red Bull overall. So they need to figure that out in their development package for the remaining of the year, as well as into next year's, because if they continue at this development pace, they are going to get passed pretty quickly.
Not only just Sergio Perez, but all the money they've had to waste particularly on all of his crashes, and that takes away from that development. And you kind of can see them slipping in the constructors, and like we talked about it, how McLaren and other teams have competed. But now that Christian Horner has been very adamant that Sergio Perez is going to stay in that seat through the remainder of the season. So it's like whatever they need to do in these final races is figure out that second driver, figure out Sergio, where are those gaps? Why are you struggling in order to kind of, keep the constructors, which I've said in a previous episode, it looks like it's McLaren's to lose right now, just on the competitiveness. Mind you, they still have 7 wins this year and 13 podiums. So it's not like it is terrible. However, you have some key departures already that have kind of shaken up the season. You have Adrian Newey, which is like the god of all F1 engineers, and we don't know where he's going yet. We hear Aston Martin, we hear Ferrari. And then you have Jonathan Wheatley, who's now taking a senior position out in Audi as a team principal. So you have some key staff that are leaving. And mind you, I'm already watching the summer break to see who's going to make their next announcement. But I would give the team like a B plus. I think that's a fair rating because they're winning, they're leading, but to the level that they weren't leading last year is concerning.
And unfortunately, that they're kind of the victim of their own craft at this point, right? Because we expect domination from the Red Bull team, as we have the past 2 seasons, right? But now that's not evidently the case. So I agree. I think B plus is a very fair assessment of Red Bull, in the sense that they are leading the Drivers' Championship, they are leading the Constructors' Championship, but their grasp on those leads are slipping and slipping every race that they've had thus far.
And I guess let's go into the second place team in the constructors, McLaren. Talk about a season which we did not expect, but they did have some improvements from last year. Lando sitting P2, Oscar Piastri in his first, I guess, second full season. Second full season sitting at P4, P2 in the constructors. You have 2 race wins. So you got the monkey off your back. Lando Norris finally won a race, and Oscar Piastri won a race, but under kind of amidst some controversy over team orders. How would you assess McLaren's? I think it's like they are the team to beat on the track right now.
If we're in a school and we're at kindergarten and we're giving out gold stars, we're giving a nice gold star to McLaren today. I tell you that much. From where they started last season in Bahrain, having about 6 or 7 pit stops for Lando, to Oscar DNFing, really had no hope. And then to turn it around this season, they started off like clear progress was made towards the end of the season. We thought they were going to challenge, for the title. They had a little bit of a hiccup at the beginning, I think, in terms of finding that pace. But my goodness, over the course of the first half of the season, they have found the pace in the car. Now what they need to do is get the strategy right, because now are we at a point now, we have to question them. Yeah, are they the happy-go-lucky team that's fighting for this, P1 in the championship, right, against Red Bull, and they're back to kind of its prestige ways of winning, right, or can win, but now they're, are we going to give them a pass on the strategy mishaps that they continually sometimes have, when it comes to their, pit stop strategy, when it comes to tire strategy, when it comes to overall racing strategy? Or do we now say, okay, McLaren is now in a position, like they've won races, they have 12 podiums in the season. Their worst result is a double points finish in Bahrain. So it's like, okay, now it's time to really start to be more critical of McLaren, I think, moving forward in terms of how they utilize their strategy, because they've left some key points on the board, which could, not only push Lando closer to Max in the World Drivers' Championship, it would have put them even closer, if not on level, with Red Bull in the World Constructors' Championship.
And what we talked about earlier in the season, particularly for McLaren, is they were a team that were battling for podiums and battling for points. And then now they finally got the promised land, and both drivers now have a win under their belt. And that we've always been critical that Lando Norris has not got that win. Like, everything has happened around him except him actually winning the race. And now that their strategy is going to be under more scrutiny, because you're now going to be expected to be a P1, P2, first place or second place on the grid, or the top two rows. Now you got to learn how to battle. What is it like to be on top of the grid? So
yeah, and to that I say, like, for the team, don't be fearful. Like, go move fast, break things is kind of like a huge motto that we've heard in like the tech industry with regards to stuff like. But you got to be able to stem away from your traditional your strategy and do what you're continually doing, is challenging yourself internally to be better every day, not only from performance wise, but now this has to transition, like from our car wise, this has to transition to strategy wise. And I think once they start doing that, the results will come for McLaren, and and if they can do it ASAP, we're gonna have a nice little fight on our hands for the final part of the season.
I would say A.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them an A. I'm gonna give them an A, just based on where they were last year and how they've been able to continue that growth. I'm gonna say A as well.
I would give them higher, but I think just given some of those like strategy problems and the controversy regarding Oscar Piastri's win, I think that would remove it from an A plus.
Right.
So let's go to Ferrari. The season has been better. I wouldn't say has been great, but like there's still some achievements that they can be happy about. They have 2 race wins under the belt. Charles Leclerc finally won his home Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz going from surgery to race winner in Australia, being a 1-2 Ferrari finish. However, I think throughout you kind of realize that like the midway of the first part of the season, the car was just not there anymore with the emergence of McLaren and Mercedes coming out of nowhere. I mean, I think they're probably very happy that they're on the break right now, just to kind of get away to focus on the car. But like I think there's some good takeaways this season. However, there's some lingering things they need to figure out if they want to still be competitive throughout the rest of the season. And it doesn't help. And it doesn't help that I was in Canada for watching the double DNF.
You lose. Are you bad luck, Johnny? Are you trying to say?
I don't know. Tyler reminds me consistently about how, hey, do you remember the time that every time you gone to Montreal, like the Ferrari's done worse? So maybe I don't go next year. Psych, I'm going.
Well, it's funny because like optimistically, right? I would say Ferrari was probably the second fastest, third fastest car at the start of the season, right? As they mentioned in Australia, P1, P2, right? But as the season progressed, McLaren, Mercedes really fought up the rank in the development battle. And I think they're now the 4th fastest team on the grid. That's unfortunate to say, but I think that they are, and they need to find more pace. But they do have 2 really great quality drivers in Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, who, Charles unfortunately had, after he won his the Monaco Grand Prix, had just a string of really bad luck, right? That resulted in DNF after DNF after DNF. But with that said, he took pole in Spa, which was great. So you do have the pace still to compete with the top 3 teams in that regards. I should say top 3 because they are in the top 3, but with Mercedes and McLaren. But they need to just find that race pace for the checkered flag so that they can be able to then again compete with those 3 teams and put Red Bull on their back heels.
How is Carlos Sainz going to respond with the last remaining races as a Ferrari driver? Because we know the big news, we'll talk about Mercedes with Lewis Hamilton coming over to Ferrari, but where is realistically does Fred Vasseur and his team think that is possible for the prancing horse to get to? Yeah. And let's talk about Mercedes.
So, I guess that's what would you grade the season then, Johnny?
Right. I keep forgetting that like we're being teachers here. I'm leaning towards like a B or B plus. I think but I would say B plus probably, because I think they did. Yes, the win in Australia, big deal. Win in Monaco, big deal. 11 podiums, pretty substantial hardware that they got to show in Maranello.
Yeah, and I think if you were to ask me to be kind of like midway through the first half of the season, like after the first 5-6 races, what would you tell me in terms of like how performance would have gone? I would have given them an A, but since Canada, really, they've kind of gone downhill in terms of performance. Double DNF, couple of non-double point finishes, so that's what it kind of moved me down to a B plus.
Okay, actually, thinking about this, I'm gonna move it to a B. Okay, just like good some positive things. However, they need to fix them. I think Mercedes. We didn't very much anticipate Mercedes to be this good towards the end. 3 race wins, 6 podiums, 0 1-2s. However, you had. You have to help me here. You had Lewis Hamilton winning the British Grand Prix, Mercedes winning 3 of the past 4 races. Lewis Hamilton and George respectively P6, P8, but this sudden momentum has put them P4 in the Constructors Championship. And had some good racing between them. I guess is Mercedes back?
I think they are, because truthfully, they have made an absolute resurgence, as you mentioned, like out of nowhere. All started in Austria with George Russell winning the Grand Prix there, and it was kind of like, oh my god, what a W in that case. And then, but I think for me the key point, or the key factor this year, was seeing Lewis Hamilton win the British Grand Prix. Kind of challenged his team around that time because he felt that he was getting the short end of the straw in terms of strategy, which I can kind of see why, because you are leaving to Ferrari, but understanding that it's as much as it's wanting to be a team game here, he's picked it up since Silverstone. It was incredible to see him win that, and that environment with Mercedes again, right? He kind of needed that before he's going to Ferrari. And if Mercedes keep, controlling or keep building on the car and developing the car at the rate that they have been, mind you, they had a 1-2 finish in Belgium or at Spa, minus the disqualification. If they didn't, if the car wasn't underweight, you have 1-2 finish right there, right? Just to add, you would have had 1-1-2 finish of the season going into the summer break. I think they are going to be the team to watch in the second half of the season, in my opinion. I think they're going to really push on. I think they're going to pass Ferrari, in my opinion, and they're going to really push McLaren and potentially Red Bull for the Constructors' Championship. But I think it's all hands on deck in at Brackley there to really be able to push that team to its maximum limits.
I think that what we've been seeing this season is that those 8 drivers, well, 7 technically, I'm not going to count Sergio in this case, but like any possibility, any of one of those can win the race.
Yeah.
Like it is very possible. However, as teams shine, as we get towards the lower, we've had some bigger disappointments, and I'm sorry to say that.
What grade are you going to give them?
Man, you keep running me off this one. I'm going to give it A for sure. Like the resurgence has got them out of the B territory.
Yeah, I'll go A as well. I think it's very fair to say A because they were like a B plus the start of the season, but the last 4 races, in my opinion, I guess you could say read to C biases play into a fact, but it's all a matter of what you did lately for me in terms of like F1, right? That's how much this development schedule is changing on a dime, right? And when you're bringing track specific upgrades, you got to be the best at the track, right? And Mercedes have proven that they've done that in the last 3 of the 4. So, if they continue that momentum, watch out.
Aston Martin. Talk about.
So we're gonna pass these guys, right? We can skip Aston Martin.
Okay, well, I'm gonna give them a D, and I'll give a quick summary.
I'm kidding.
I think the big thing that really stood out for me is the difference between last season's start with Fernando Alonso to this season. I feel like Aston Martin throughout the whole season either are playing catch up or they were never whatever I don't know if you remember Space Jam as a kid, that special stuff, like they don't have it anymore. There's no like I don't know, there's like no juice in the car to compete with the rest of the grid.
I mentioned earlier about how McLaren have done like a 180 in terms of performance. Aston Martin, in terms of expectations, have kind of done a 180 for me because this was a team that was, as Mr. Lawrence Stroll himself said, built to be winning championships, or our goal is to win championships. What championship are you winning, man, right now? My expectations were low, but holy F award, like that's what we're talking about right now. And they're in the midst of putting in the next phase of the new factory that they got over the summer break. But my goodness, whenever they kind of bring upgrades to these racetracks, they become like downgrades at times, and they really struggle on performance. Not where they want to be, especially when you're pitted to want to win championships in the future. What could change that though, and what they really need is for Adrian Newey to come in. And if they can sign Adrian Newey, that will flip my optimism about the year, to be honest with you, because
I would say that's the saving grace of this year. If you guys can land him and continue to just get some like chip away on some points in some other teams, but like it's been a tough sell there, and especially when you talk about how Stroll has been selling this like multi-million-dollar or probably billion-dollar facility, and then it's like you got no hardware to show for it this season.
Yeah, not even a podium. We're not even talking about a podium here. Like the best finish they've gotten is a P6 in Canada. Like,
yeah,
not good. And so to me, I'm giving them like a D minus. Just because of the expectations that we've been built upon, or as a fan, are built to believe, and then what the results are. I know they're point finishes, but that's, we're supposed to be better than the 5th place team on the grid.
I think just like how the season started last year could have easily been like a B to an A for what was supposed to be only for one driver compared to the other one. But I agree, the D minus is a very fair rate. So let's hit the other junior Red Bull team. V card, Yuki Tsunoda, Daniel Ricciardo, P12, P13 respectively. Only 34 points to show. No wins, no podiums. We'd never expected them to be. Highest finishes had I think it was P7 Then P7 in Miami with 6 points from the sprint race. They had a double DNF retirement. I don't know. How are you finding the V card season? I think Yuki, I feel bad because I think Yuki really wanted that second seat at Red Bull so much. And with the signature signing of re-signing of like Sergio Perez or him keeping him on for the rest of the year, if I'm Yuki Tsunoda, if I'm Liam Lawson, if I'm Daniel Ricciardo, wouldn't I want to look elsewhere?
Yeah, it's been a tough season because they struggled really out of the gate, right? They had some internal fighting in Bahrain between Danny and Yuki, in terms of like, Yuki wanting to get ahead of Daniel or Daniel getting ahead of Yuki to fight ahead, but never relinquishing the position back. In that case, creating kind of that internal battle. It was kibosh pretty quickly, but they struggled out of the gate. They've seen some upgrades that have kind of come up and give them some solid trajectory. Like in Miami, they had a P7 finish plus 6 points from the sprint race. They scored points, I think, in 10 of the last 14 weekends. But with them kind of becoming closer with Red Bull, I expected them to get better, kind of challenge for that P5. They really haven't been able to fully challenge for P5 in the World Constructors Championship. But as you mentioned, my concern is that with all the internal politicking that you have with keeping Sergio in, was he supposed to be out? There was rumors that Daniel Ricciardo, it looked pretty much like Daniel Ricciardo was supposed to be the second half driver for Red Bull, which would have opened up a seat. I don't know if like Sergio would have gone down or if then Liam Lawson would have come in, because now the issues you have are, could you lose like Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda due to these internal politics, where they want to find a team to drive on the grid?
I think if I was those drivers, I'd be looking elsewhere. I mean, especially if you are like you, how long do you really want to be in the junior team for?
Well, and Yuki's been he's been in the sport since what, 2021. So this would be his fourth full season in the junior team, right? And he's the one that has the highest finishing GP position out of the both of them. P7 in Australia, P7 in Miami, right? And he should be the one that should be considered for that second driver's seat should that position re-come up. But I'm curious to see what the driver lineup will look like next year, because he has been confirmed at VCARB to hopefully to be a driver next season, but with helmet Marco, anything can change on dime. So, yeah, I'm gonna give them like a C plus, like a mid-level grade. Like they've been okay.
Same for me. But the one that has actually kind of been interesting is Haas, because I think with Günther Steiner leaving, I was like, how is this team going to respond under a new principal? But it's clearly has paid dividends. Well, particularly for one driver over the other. Nico Hulkenberg is having a season to remember, which I did not anticipate. But Kevin Magnussen is playing bumper cars out there.
Do a barrel
Haas,
roll.
no matter if they're the seventh place, I think they should be happy with how the season has gone. Double points finish. They back-to-back P6s in Austria and Silverstone. Their worst result was Monaco, had a double DNF. But I mean, Oliver Bearman and Esteban Ocon, that could be an interesting take next year.
I would say this is my team of the year so far. I said they weren't going to score a point this season. They were predicting that they'd be finishing in the parking lot in Bahrain at the beginning of the year. But boom, Ayo Komatsu, hats off to you, my man. You have taken this team, and I think there was a lot of excuses were being made in the Günther Steiner area and for the car in terms of development. Ayo's kind of taken that away, and he's really focused on the performance and how to maximize strategy within the race. As you can tell, Kevin Magnussen, mentioned playing bumper cars. I think he's got more penalties than he has driver's points this season, overall. But they've had a terrific season. Like, expectations are for them to get into Q2, and with Hulkenberg, he can get into Q3 with some great drives, which has been amazing to see. Like a team like Haas is just making their charge up, and they're maximizing every resource that they have at their disposal to get to in this P7 position, where this is 27 more points than I thought they were going to score all season, in my opinion. Their driver lineup next year looks exciting. We have Ollie Behrman, who's, sitting P14 in the current World Drivers' Championship right now with the one race finish. And then you have Esteban Ocon coming in, which is a little bit of a question mark because, we'll talk about Alpine in a little bit and how they've been getting along. But I think what the best thing is that they've removed the tire issue that they had last year over a single lap, and they've now been able to transition that into race performance.
Ollie Behrman is sitting P14 in the Drivers' Championship right now, and that's ahead of, I guess that's ahead of Kevin Magnussen, who's raced the whole season.
So, in my opinion, they get the A+. They are the gold star. They are the team of the year based on expectations for me.
Yeah, they've blown it out the water. I'll give it an A+. But like, talk about flop city, baby, Alpine.
Do a barrel roll.
If you watch one of those like Olympics where like people just like they try to dive and they just like give up, or I think there's the meme of that guy running doing the pole vault and he just like kind of went under. This summarizes the season. It's just like it's been rough. Like I feel bad for. It's like I kind of want to feel bad, but also like, didn't we kind of anticipate this? You had a horrible start to the season. Yet we had like the slowest car on the grid. People were saying. You had another team principal change. And then, Ocon's leaving and Pierre Gasly looks like he's staying. Like, who really wants to go in that position as the second driver after this season? And your drivers have collided together. Clearly there's been friction. Monaco was a disaster. I think they crashed earlier in the season too, but like it's been just really bad for the French team.
Yeah, they changed their philosophy on the car, in terms of the aerodynamics, in terms of the chassis at the start of the season, and that really showed because they were just hella overweight for performance, right? And they were just, as you mentioned, they just create them to be so slow. And then when you have two guys like Pierre and Esteban who really don't like each other to begin with, they're butting heads constantly, more so Esteban butting Pierre than Pierre butting Esteban, as you can tell in Monaco. It was a tumultuous start. Like, I mean, you probably couldn't have asked for a worse start if you're an Alpine fan. And there was no daylight at the end of the tunnel. Since then, they've kind of been able to upgrade the car and they've scored a couple points. I had 2 double point finishes in Canada and Spain, P9, P10, which was great. But I think the real key focus was Esteban crashing into Pierre, really cemented his exit out of Alpine. Like Alpine / Renault had enough of the BS that Ocon was. I know that he won a race with them back in 2021. But again, it's what are you doing for me now as opposed to you did for me back then? And Esteban was hurting the team overall internally. So that means you get the kick of the can, buddy. And that means Pierre Gasly does not have a driver's schedule or with him next year. There's lots of rumors that it's going to be Jack Doohan, which I think will be great because you don't want to screw up another reserve driver that you of great quality in your team. To go to another one. So if I was Oliver Oakes now, because we change team principles at Alpine like it's seasonal decorations in your house. This is kind of where we're going now, and he really needs to lock down Jack Doohan, in my opinion.
F. That's it. F. Total F. Williams, let's jump into Williams. We got 2 teams left. Not the season what they're hoping. I really appreciate Jim's vows. Like he's so determined, and he wants to change the image of Williams. However, I think the focus should be on next season. I think this season has been quite a wash, to be quite blunt. Alex Albon has been the only driver who's been bringing points in the team. However, it is not much, but I mean, and then now you have like Logan Sargent, who will not be with the team next year. I think their biggest excitement of this year was signing Carlos Sainz to a multi-year contract beginning in 2025.
Yeah, another team that kind of try to change their philosophy and how they built the car at the beginning of the season in terms of, last year was very much straight line speed was their focus and maximizing points at tracks that had straight line, a ton of straight lines. so they can, they try to do it for a more balanced approach, and it has not panned out, unfortunately, for James Vowes and his team at Williams. And they've had a ton of issues trying to make spare parts. And that was clear in Australia when Albon crashed his own car and they didn't have a spare chassis. So they had to make the decision to remove Logan Sargent from the race and give Alex his own chassis, which pretty much cemented his kind of legacy in the team at that point, feeling that you're not really a top priority for a driver in the next few years, despite the lip service that they were giving us in the media. They've, Alex has been able to wrestle that car to a P9 finish in Monaco and at Silverstone. Otherwise, they lost a lot of components to the car. They are not doing well performance-wise. I would give them an F, but they have made the signing of the summer in getting Carlos Sainz for 2025 onward. And I think that team of Carlos and Alex are going to push Williams back into that P7 spot they had last year, and maybe even keep fighting in the midfield going forward. So I'm going to give them a D-.
I'll agree with you. I think that's the saving grace of the season. I think the focus should be on next year, and I mean, if you can try to get out of the basement as possible. But like, if we want to talk about the basements of all basements, it's been really interesting to see this Sauber team. And you kind of feel bad for the drivers because I think they are quality drivers, but however, I guess the car is just not as competitive, or it's not like, look, Valtteri Bottas had a reasonable start when he moved over to that team, when he left Mercedes. It's just that it's the only way they can go this season is going to be up. And that's the hope that they can get some points in the second half of the season. I generally feel bad. It's been tough watching them race this season.
Generally, I just don't think Sauber really even give a shit anymore. Now that the transition to Audi is going to be happening within the next 2 years, that I think they're just fielding a team at minimum cost or whatnot to skate by and then go into, for the transition to work. And I guess the only good caveat is that they've been able to drop their average pit stop time from 40 seconds to about 3.
You lose.
Yeah, that's pretty good, Jim.
They get like one of those certificates that say, hey, you did it. Way to go from 40 seconds to 3 seconds in your average pit stop time. Great work.
I totally forgot about those. Well, they're going to have Nico Hulkenberg come next year. I mean, Jonathan Wheatley as team principal in 2026. That will be... I mean, I don't know if Audi actually confirmed that, like Red Bull saying that he was leaving. That was the joke when we kind of saw that. There was no official from them, but I also don't think because they've not made an official team. But they've made some upgrades, but they're still not competitive. So I'm going to give it an F. And
I'm going to give them an F-. I mean, like
bottom possible?
Of the. It is now. You are getting negative percentage because it has been so bad.
So those are our scores and our thoughts of the midpoint season here of the 2024 F1 season. Look, much more competitive this season. We've definitely been seeing that, and it's been fun to watch. You're really excited. We're going to be we're going to preview the Dutch Grand Prix next week because everyone's going to be back from the summer break. Reminder, please let us know if you want to come to Trinity Common to watch the Dutch Grand Prix and sit with us. I will be there. I think, Andrew, you're coming, but not going to confirm with your calendar. Got to check that out. Anyways, thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of the F1 Podcast. I'm Jonathan Ricci. That's Andrew Cleary. Erica couldn't make it to today's episode, but stay tuned on our social media channels on Linktree, and we will see you next week as we preview the Dutch Grand Prix. See you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.